Hello, everybody, and welcome back to OMB Reviews. I am the critic who is a cynic. How is everyone doing this evening? Welcome back to the Welcome to Asgard podcast, episode 302, where tonight, me and a special guest will be talking about Ghostbusters Afterlife and what our thoughts were on the film. Before going any further, please make sure you smash that like button. It really does mean a lot. Also, if anyone is used to watching on Odyssey, I apologize. For some reason, Odyssey is having some issues, but let me go ahead and introduce my guest at this time. She is Michelle from Force of Light Entertainment, and here she is. Michelle, how's it going?
Good. How are you doing?
Doing just fine. Glad to see that this technology seems to be working. So
Yes,
I've been
yeah.
playing around with it the last several weeks. So
Okay, yeah, it's always nice when technology works.
yes, absolutely, absolutely. So thank you again for jumping on and joining me for this discussion, because you also saw the film and thoroughly enjoyed it as well.
I did, yes. I really enjoyed it.
Good, awesome. Well, before diving into the film, why don't you tell the people watching, the people of Asgard, a little bit about yourself?
Yes, well, I am, as he said, I'm Michelle. I am one half of Force of Light Entertainment. My sister was not able, my co-host was not able to be with us tonight, but she sends her hello. But yes, we cover all things entertainment, movie reviews. Our channel does movie reviews, kind of pop culture, that type of stuff. But Odin's been on our channel. He was a great guest. But yeah, that's kind of about us.
Nice.
We cover anything.
Yeah, I know, pretty much. Yeah, and it was awesome being on y'all's channel. We had a lot of fun, had a lot of really good discussions. And yeah, ever since I've been playing around with the Restream Studio, I knew that I was wanting to get some people on. And obviously, one of the first names that I thought of was Force of Light Entertainment, because we are one of the few, I feel, channels out there covering pop culture news, kind of in the sphere that we're in, where we're more wholesome. Right. Not to say that anyone in here is not wholesome, right, in the chat, but we tend not to swear, right? We tend to keep things very family friendly. And so I knew that y'all were definitely at the top of my list because of that reason. So again, thank you very much for joining me today.
Yes, well, thank you for having me. And again, Natalie was preoccupied with her daughter tonight, but she wanted to come, and she said to tell everyone hello.
Well, thank you for that. And Natalie, hopefully we can get y'all on again, and you'll be able to join us as well. But let's say hello to some of the people tonight before diving into this movie, which we are, again, pretty big fans of. And hopefully we're able to convince anyone maybe on the fence with the film to maybe go out and see it. Matthew Hyland was one of the first people here, and he said, just got out of Ghostbusters Afterlife, haven't cried like that since the first time seeing Return of the King's ending. Wow, that's pretty powerful. Though I do have to have the follow up with that, which is which ending of that movie makes you cry? Because it has a few at the very least.
It really does.
Yes, but I totally understand the general sentiment, right, of the ending, and also we are going to keep it a spoiler-free discussion for the most part. I think we might bring up some spoilers towards the end, so don't worry, we'll give you a warning about that when we get to that territory, because obviously it just came out, and we want people to be able to actually be able to enjoy the film and also to hear a little bit about the thoughts in a spoiler-free discussion. But yeah, that's awesome, Matthew. So thank you for being in the chat. Terrace Thesis in the chat. What's going on? It's a new name, saying that they put fresh chopped onions in their popcorn. That's new to me. Has that ever happened to you?
It has not happened to me. But I have a feeling. I have a feeling it's because they shed some tears watching this movie.
You probably got that easily much more than I did, because at first all I could think of was onions. Why would you put onions in it? But that makes a lot more sense.
That would be absolutely disgusting.
So I hope that it was because of the tears shed, and I just totally missed it. So thanks to Michelle for picking up on that. That I was not able to pick up on. Snortopupus Cuber, what's going on? How Howens and other quitters, what's going on, Snortopupus? Welcome back. Orange Hair Reviews, what's going on, brother? welcome back. Bruce in the chat as well. The R, what's going on? He's usually one of my guys over on Odyssey, saying he can't stay around too long tonight. Super Anime Gamer, what's going on, bruvs? G-Monkey76 is here. We got the Sage of Rokaseka, what's going on? Joey Horn in the chat. Forever Sci-Fi is here. Laura Story, the modern major general of the channel. Laura, hope you're doing well. Thank you for being here, and I appreciate that Star Wars reference. Well, hello there. Forever Sci-Fi, what's going on, brother? He says, just got out of Ghostbusters, liked it, but really gets you in the feels. Made me feel sad for what could have been. Yeah, absolutely. But you know what? Without going into any spoilers, I think they did the best that they could with it. You know? There's a reason why a lot of us are saying that we had some feels, especially towards the end of it. Let's see here. Alice McCarthy says, howdy, Odin. How's it going? How's Baby Thor? New Home Alone is a 1 out of 10. Well, first off, Alex McCarthy, I just have to ask the question, why would you even think to watch the New Home Alone?
Oh, man.
Yeah. He is the king of bad opinions, like bad movie opinions. So if he hates a movie, it's usually pretty bad. Because
it got a 1 out of 10.
Yeah, exactly. So if this is getting a 1 out of 10, then this is a movie that you should never, ever even think of watching ever in your life. Because, yeah, he's like some pretty bad films in the past. So, okay. Again, I don't know why you would ever have thought that film would have been worth your time. But, okay, to each their own. To each their own. Stephanie B, what's going on? One of my Valks. Thank you very much for being here. Let me see anyone else who is joining us. We got Golden Ration in the chat, Coliseum Builders in the chat as well. Much love to the Valkyrie. Tina, the Empress of the Universe, one of the other Valks, she will not be here in the chat because she is actually going to see it in theaters. That's how important this film is and how much positive energy it's getting, and she was convinced, and she does not want to go out to the theater for new films very often. So that's kind of a big deal, which is why I really do think that this film is going to do a lot better than what typically we are used to seeing out of a lot of the typical projections for films like this, I think. And again, apologies to, I just saw a comment from is it Scutlist or Scuttiest? Saying that there's Odyssey issues. Yeah, I put in everything correctly. For some reason, it just not want to work tonight. And we all know Odyssey, of course, been having some issues. And did you watch any of the Ricada stream for the Rittenhouse coverage?
I did not. Like, I know what you're talking about, but I didn't watch it.
Okay. Because, it was insane. He had like 100,000 people watching him. But then he also had... eventually at one point sent a bunch of people over to Odyssey and crashed it. So Odyssey has been having some issues recently, especially. So,
well,
yeah, makes me sad. Makes me sad.
Well, maybe it will get better. It will work. They'll work it out and improve it.
Oh yeah, I mean it's already leaps and bounds better than what it was on day one. I mean it's done a lot with live streaming especially, and normally it works without any issues whatsoever. So it's been pretty great to be able to have that as an alternative platform. Have y'all decided to use anything with Odyssey or to have your channel mirrored over there?
Do you know, I feel like I started it and I like got confused on how to do it because someone told me it takes like 5 minutes to get it where they just automatically switch everything, which I would like to do it. I just need to I don't think it's over there yet. I need to do it.
Okay, gotcha. Yeah, because I set it up back when it was just library, like LBRY, and that was when it was not nearly as streamlined. That's why I love Odyssey a lot more because it's just a nice, cleaner interface on top of the same platform. And I remember when I first moved my channel over there, it took a while. It took like a long time just because of the amount of videos that it had to put over there. So that might be a part of it. But yeah, I could see why it's definitely not the most user-friendly because I know there was a time when I was doing, I was saying this last summer, I was trying to do some Odyssey exclusive streams. And I had a lot of, longtime supporters who were trying to figure things out. And it just got really confusing really quickly. So I can understand why that could be the case. Let's see. Sage of Rokaseka, what's going on? Says yes, quote, family friendly. Yeah, it is a family friendly channel. I would say PG, maybe PG-13 only when we like get on more heavy topics, but I would say we're a PG channel. I've had several people
and then it's
say.
a soft PG-13.
Exactly, a very soft PG-13, right? Without the other, not without the language or the violence or anything. It's subject matter. It's a subject matter, PG-13. He says, but even wholesome needs a little salt from time to time. Oh yeah, absolutely, no doubt about it. Saltiness itself is not going to violate the PG principle there.
No.
And Blazing 44, what's going on? Sam Samadas, what is going on? And also, Blazing says, greetings to Michelle.
Hello to you.
Hello. Let's see. Sam Samadas says, just got back from Ghostbusters. A lot of people wanted to go see it today. It was a lot of fun. Teared up during that Ghost that I'm going to have to see it again. Yeah. Absolutely. And, without talking specifically about it, did you tear up as well, Michelle, for that part?
Okay. So I know exactly what scene is being referred to here. And yeah, okay, tears did not stream down my face, but they were swelling in my eyes. And Natalie, who actually, so Natalie, I guess, has seen Ghostbusters, she says, but she can't remember any of it. She was so little. And she said she was like tearing up in that moment. So clearly they did. It wasn't even just nostalgia. They did a good job of just provoking some emotion in general.
Mm-hmm.
But yes, I did. So let's just say my eyes were very watery, and I had to like get a drink of water to try to like, don't cry, Michelle, don't cry right now. This is embarrassing. But yes,
don't you cry right now. Don't you dare cry. Because I was the same. Yeah, it was just the swelling of emotion, and there were tears in my eyes, but they didn't fall.
Me. Yes.
Yeah,
that was
me too. That was me as well. And if anyone's seen it, you kind of can understand why.
Yeah.
And we'll leave it at that until we talk spoilers at the end. Let's see. Dolores Ed, what's going on, brother? Thank you for being here. Orange Chat says, many a tear was shed with Ghostbusters 3. I haven't been this excited for a movie in a long time. My excitement wasn't able to be contained, he went on to say. Yeah, absolutely. I think it's something where it was a film that when the end came, not just the end we were talking about, but when the credits started, there's music that plays, and it's music that instantly just gets you in the mood. You're just like, okay, yes, I'm feeling it. Like I was feeling it the entire film. I was feeling it now. And it was just, it was beautiful. It was fantastic. All righty. I think that's about it. Let's see. Innovator Sensuna is here. What's going on, Innovator? We got Midnight's Edge After Dark. Me, Tom. What's going on, brother? Thanks for being here.
Hello, Tom.
Yeah, commenting is dangerous is also here as well. Midnight's Edge also watched the new. Why would you do that? Why?
Is that on Disney Plus? I don't even know that it's on.
It is. Yeah, because that was a Fox property. So they decided, hey, what else haven't we rebooted yet that no one wants?
We ruined?
That no one wants to have rebooted. Oh, wait a minute. I know exactly which one. Oh man. Then he goes on to say here that to see how trash New Home Alone is. Yeah, but you don't have to actually watch it. You don't have to watch it.
I mean, I just knew as soon as they said they're redoing Home Alone, I was like, that's trash.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, there was definitely a couple of moments there where there was some because you don't typically wear headphones, do you?
No, I don't.
Yeah.
Was I echoing?
There was just a little bit of echo. I think there's a setting where if you click on the settings and you go to the audio, there should be an echo cancellation button for anyone that doesn't wear headphones.
I think I just turned it off. Should it be blue or blue? I think I turned it back on. Am I still echoing?
Okay, so it's back on now.
Yes.
Okay, so if it was on before, it just means that it's not working very well.
Am I echoing?
Not right now, no.
Okay. Let me know if I am.
Yeah. It was one of the things where it was coming in like every now and then, but it wasn't like too like.
It could have been my Wi-Fi. I'm going to have to increase my Wi-Fi.
Yeah, well, because do you have the great EPB Wi-Fi?
I don't think we do. Yeah,
okay.
Because you have that in Chattanooga. I don't think we get that here.
Yeah. No, it's beautiful. I wish everyone had it. It's just it's 300 megs up and down for like $60. a month,
Nice.
and it's wonderful. It's exactly what the internet should be.
Yeah.
Fast and cheap.
Yes.
That's all it needs to be. Rob D, what's going on? Says, hello to Odin and Michelle. It's great. Ghostbusters Afterlife turned out good. I won't be seeing it, though. Ghostbusters, the franchise, I just couldn't get into. Yeah, Rob D, to each their own. At the very least, right, you're being honest, straightforward there. That's just not your cup of tea, and I understand it. But even, I think, for non-Ghostbusters fans, I think that this is a movie that a lot of people, fan or not, could probably get into, even just for the cast alone. Because I think that y'all had mentioned it in y'all's review about Paul Rudd.
Yes. Yeah.
And it being one of the better roles that he's had more recently. And it made me want to ask a question specifically about Paul Rudd, because have you seen him in Perks of Being a Wallflower?
Yes, I have.
And
he's the teacher.
Exactly. I don't know what it is, because as soon as you mentioned that, I'm like, well, that's because he just plays a perfect teacher, and I don't know what it is about Paul Rudd, but I just remembering back to Perks of Being a Wallflower where he was the teacher, and he was great. I'm like, he should just be a teacher for the rest of his life, because he seems to have that down pat.
He does.
Yeah. Let's see. Midnight's Edge says, the box office is fired up. It's even reserved full in my hometown till Sunday. Nice, dude.
Good.
Yeah. It's overperforming. It's doing better than what the expectations were, but my metric is this. If it has to beat Ghostbusters 2016 opening weekend. That's what I want. And as of now, it's set to be 8 million short. So hopefully after our discussion, or maybe that just point alone, if that does not convince you to go out and actually support the film, I hope it does.
Okay, so quick story.
Yeah, go ahead.
Someone in our comments, because I read almost all of our comments, someone in our comments put, and it was just like very dryly written. It said, the 2016 Ghostbusters was better. And I didn't reply because I'm like, is this a joke? Or are they being serious? Like, I really don't know. Like, is it supposed to be this dry humor that they know that I know that this is a joke? Because I want to put back to them, you're joking, right? But I've just kind of left it because I'm not really sure.
Maybe you should respond like with some sarcasm, like, yes, it's the bestest ever, like with 1,000 A's, and then see what the response is from there. And maybe that will give an indication of whether they're being serious or not. Because I don't see how anyone in their right mind can honestly look at that film and say, oh yeah, that film's not just to say, oh, it's a great film, but it's better than this film.
Yeah.
I mean, because this film's got its faults, no doubt about it. I mean, and story elements, I think a lot of the people who love this film will tell you, yeah, it's not a perfect film, especially some elements of the story, but it's great in all the right places. It's great where it needs to be.
It definitely.
Oh man. All right, so Slicer Neons said, bad movies like The Home Alone reboot exists for Mystery Science Theater 3000 and pitch meetings to have new content. Yeah, that is definitely true. I cannot wait to see the pitch meeting on have you ever seen the pitch meetings done by, was it Screen Rant?
Yes, I have.
Oh, they're so great. They are fantastic. There hasn't been one yet that has let me down. Even for films I like, because he does them for good and bad films, which is great. And then we'll go with the first super chat, and then we'll start talking about the actual film. So G-Man, thank you for the $5 super chat. He says, all I need to know is whether grown-up baby Oscar is in the movie, and if not, why? Wow. Okay, well, I don't think this would fall into spoiler territory, because I don't think a lot of people were kind of hoping or expecting that. Maybe except for you, G-Man, because I sent some sarcasm in the super chat. But I will, for those that do care, if there's that one person out there that cares about whether or not baby Oscar is all grown up in the movie and featured, this is spoiler warning, he's not. Okay. Anyway, so that should not have ruined anyone's day or experience of the film. So speaking of that movie, let's go ahead and talk about it. So what is it about this movie for you that really, I think, captured and captivated you because there's a lot of things to talk about in this, but is there like one thing specifically that really kind of like pulled you in more so than any of the other parts?
Okay, I will have to say, and two, I was not some massive. You're speaking to pretty much like I guess a normie of
Mm.
Ghostbusters. Like I remember watching it as a kid, but I went and saw it actually on the big screen in 2020. They played it one night, and I went and saw it. It was the first time I'd seen it in years, and I really enjoyed it. Um, so I'm not like some diehard Ghostbusters person that grew up watching it all the time. I've seen it. I just had it. It's not like what Star Wars was to me or anything like that.
Hmm.
But I will say this: from the moment it started, like I had a smile on my face, and it never went off. And I think what it was for me is this movie captured like the feel that 80s movies could create, like
Hmm.
ET's, Ghostbusters, those the magic of 80s movies but made in a modern era. And it just there was something that was so magical about it. I keep using that word. It's the only word I know to use. That I feel like you don't get very often anymore. It was
Yeah.
just special. There's something kind of special to me about this movie.
Yeah, and I would agree completely because, kind of like tying in with that, not only did you have kind of like this 80s feel, which was also, I think, very much helped by, and I know that y'all had mentioned this in y'all's review as well, the very just so perfectly well done nods to the original score. Like there's moments in
Yes.
the film where all of a sudden
Yes.
there's like a line from the original score that comes in or an adaptation of the score, and you're just like, oh, I know this, and it just
Mhm.
kind of ties it all together. So not only does it have that 1980s feel, but then it also has this Stranger Things feel, which I know that Stranger Things is also meant to be kind of like this 80s esque property, but I think it's kind of its own entity of itself too. And I
Yeah.
think that because it's able to get like more classic 80s style with also Stranger Things style, 80s style, it's able to kind of bridge this gap, which is why I think that you're going to find a lot of audiences that are adults who grew up with Ghostbusters in some way, whether it was, they had seen it in theaters originally, or they just, watched it several times as they were growing up and, got the toys and everything, or whether or not it's this other group, right, that's been growing up with Stranger Things. I think it's
Yeah.
going to be able to kind of like bridge that gap and that divide. And I think that's kind of what they needed to do with this movie, right? Because some have it in their mind because oh, I'm hearing myself now. Oh, what's going on? Oh, okay. Okay. So Odyssey is up. That was what I was hearing. Anyway, so Odyssey is up. That's why it was in the background for me. So y'all probably didn't hear it, but I heard it. Anyway, apologies about that because I was like, wait a minute, why am I hearing myself now? This is going to drive me insane. But anyway, back to the point I was trying to make of it was able to bridge this gap. And some people think that this movie needed to basically start a new franchise.
Mhm.
Like I don't know if that was their expectation. Like they thought this was going to be a reboot to like set up for like the future films and to continue it on with a younger cast. But I don't think that's what people really wanted. I think people just wanted kind of like this. It was mentioned on Friday Night Tights the other day that it's almost, a word for it is like an epilogue almost. And I think that's
Yeah.
exactly what this film delivers on. And I think that even though there are certain things that people would rather have seen in this, I understand. Like there's people that would have loved to have seen a lot more time to certain characters. I think with what they were dealing with, especially with people like Bill Murray, right,
Yeah.
who is a complicated individual, right? And we all know, right? So he has a lot of history of being complicated. I think with all of the things that they have, that this is really kind of the best that they could come up with, which is exactly what it needed to be, right? To be able to address the fact that it needs to appeal to a younger audience, but at the same time have enough of those key nostalgia elements of which this film has a plethora of to also keep the original fans, OG fans, happy as well. And I
Yeah.
think that this film's able to bridge that gap.
Definitely. My niece, who is she I'm like, oh my gosh, she's 14, she'll be 15. But anyways, she's a young teen and she loves Stranger Things
Mm-hmm.
and she loved this movie. And
Yep.
she's seen Ghostbusters. She's seen them, several times growing up, but she really loved it. Her quote was, I didn't want it to end. So, like, at least with her, it did do that bridging gap of
Okay.
bringing on a new generation that really enjoyed it.
There you go. I think that it's a small sample size, but
Yeah.
I think that does still kind of, get that message across that this is indeed a film that is going to reach out, right? Because I was even talking about this with my kids, right, as a teacher, and they immediately were like, oh yeah, because that's the film with Finn Wolfhard.
Yes.
Because
Yeah.
like they all know him, right? Because he is someone that they are going to be drawn to just as kids of a similar age, and as being a part of the Stranger Things, right?
Yes.
Of the Stranger Things era, and that is exactly what they wanted to do based on what we've seen and what they needed to do. Because if they're going to want this film to be a success, and as you mentioned, right, she enjoyed it. Did this make her at all want to go watch any of the originals?
I'd have to ask her because she went with me in summer of 2020 to go see the original in theaters.
Okay.
And she's seen them several times. So I'll have to ask. But I know she really genuinely, I mean, loved it.
Nice.
And she's not really liked too much that's come out this year that much. Like she's
Okay.
thought they were okay. Like this is one of the first things she genuinely really liked besides A Quiet Place.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, it has been a rough year for films. I will
It has.
I will say that much. There's really only maybe like a handful where I'm like, yeah, you know what, that's worth getting. And I've already, I think, gotten most of them on Blu-ray because they came out earlier in the year. But this is another one of those movies that I think I'm going to have to be able to pick up eventually.
Definitely.
Yeah, for sure. And before diving back into that, because this, the one problem with the restream chat, and I'm assuming it's an issue with StreamYard too, just because of it's a YouTube problem, is that the chat sometimes jumps and you can't go back.
Yes.
Yeah. So we had a giant super chat. So a $77.77. That's a super chat from Low Pro. So thank you very much for that very generous super chat, man. And he says, how old do you think Thor will be before you show him classic films like Ben-Hur or Quo Vadis? Also, it was a good Friday for justice. God bless y'all. Absolutely, Low Pro. It absolutely was a great day for justice, a great day for freedom. And obviously that made a lot of people happy, including myself, because you don't want to see, even though he's an adult, technically, he's a kid.
Yes. And I just want to say it's been disgusting to see just the harshness. And it's like, guys, this person is 17 years old.
Yeah.
Like, chill out.
Yeah. Like, again, kid, teen, young adult, whatever label you want to put on it, he is a kid. And obviously people are going to have different opinions. And I myself, right? I myself, just from a moral stand, because for those that don't know, both me and Michelle are both people with theological backgrounds and theological degrees. So there is like that moral component to it. But at the same time, even though there might be a moral like element that I could bring into the discussion, that's not what the law states.
Yes.
And that is what this was about. It was not about the morality necessarily of the situation, but it was about the legal precedent, the legal aspects. So, and yeah, I totally agree. The amount of just complete disgusting and ugly things being said about him and about others, it makes you sad. It just makes you sad.
It does.
But yeah, anyway, Low Pro, I probably will have to wait for him to be a little bit older because those are going to be some dense, long films. So Baby Thor is going to have to be a little bit older.
I don't even think I've seen Ben-Hur.
You never seen the original Ben-Hur?
I don't believe so. When did the original come out?
Oh, back 1940s, 1950s?
Oh, then I've definitely never seen that.
Have you seen a lot of classics?
We did used to watch a lot of classics, but I feel like they were real girly classics.
Oh, okay. Gotcha. So like, is like 80s classic or?
Well, we even went back further than that.
Okay.
Like we used to watch, of course we
Breakfast
grew up
at Tiffany's kind of thing.
Breakfast and Tiffany, Gone with the Wind, those type classics. I watched all the James Dean movies, those types of things. And I did love Clash of the Titans, the original one growing up.
Okay.
I love that movie.
Okay. Okay.
But yes, I don't believe I've ever seen Ben-Hur.
Wow. Well, I will say I'm definitely going to be happy that Tina's not in the chat because she would be freaking out right now. Because anytime I mention not seeing like an old classic or not liking a classic, she just will go crazy. Kara Tharp says she thinks that the one we're talking about came out in 1959. So
Okay.
yeah, definitely a classic era film, but it's really well done. And just like with Quo Vadis as well. Have you seen Quo Vadis?
No, I don't even know what that.
Yeah.
I know what Ben-Hur's kind of about. I've never even heard of the other.
And I will say that one was a little bit more obscure for me too. So someone actually sent that one to me to watch, and it's solid, but it's definitely like more on like a B tier. Like if Ben-Hur is like that A tier level like epic film, this is like it was one of those B tier level films for Quo Vadis, at least just for my own perspective. But it's similar in certain ways because there is a religious aspect to the story as well.
Okay.
Yeah. So I thought that was pretty good. And Miss Martin Muses, thank you very much for the super sticker, for the red rose super sticker. I very much appreciate it. Also, if I don't get to your chats tonight, I do apologize. But as I do have a guest on, obviously, my attention must go towards the guest. So we were talking about what was some of like the magic, like what was some of the most key elements of the story for us. And I think that I guess we can talk a little bit about, kind of some of the different elements. Well, first off, who is your favorite character in the film?
For me, Phoebe was like the standout to me.
Mm-hmm.
Like, because, and I actually heard someone else say this, and when he said it was actually Chris Stuckman, but when he said it, I was like, you know what, I really agree with that. He said that her character could have very easily come across like very unlikable, like being
Mm-hmm.
so intelligent and that kind of dry personality. And to me, she like all of her jokes genuinely made me laugh because they were so bad.
Yeah.
But like, say that I guess this is a small spoiler, but it's not really spoiling much. Say like when she delivers that first dry joke to Paul Rudd and then
Mm-hmm.
she winks at him, like it was just delivered perfectly.
Yes.
I cracked up.
Yes. I know exactly the moment you're talking about. And yeah, I was in a theater. I saw it opening night. And I was in an IMAX screen. IMAX typically have like 400 seats or so, and it was probably 25% full, which doesn't sound like a whole lot, but I think that especially for that theater and how the numbers there have been like since the pandemic started, it was one of the biggest crowds that I've seen in a good while. And when that joke happened and that wink, it was just. Yeah, it was perfectly awkward as it's a Gungan who just became a member on the channel. Thank you for becoming a member. It's a Gungan. But yes, it was perfectly awkward. And that's, I think, the truth of all of her jokes as well. Like I laughed at every single one of them. I thought they were all hilarious.
Because they were so bad. Like
Yes.
they were funny because they were so bad, but they played it that way and it just worked.
And she had the perfect delivery for it.
She did. She did.
So that's young McKenna Grace who played that character. And yeah, I would agree. I think that she's by far the standout of the film. And I remember just from the trailer, immediately upon looking at her, I was like, oh yeah, I could totally buy that she's related to Egon.
Yes, yeah, definitely.
There's no question.
And what's funny about her winning me over so much is in the trailers, of course, being a Stranger Things fan, I'm seeing Finn Wolfhard, I'm seeing Paul Rudd. But she's, I see her, but she's not really catching my attention necessarily. But in the movie, like she won me over pretty quickly and became like, I really loved that character. It was a really good character.
Yeah.
Which I would like to point out, because some people like to fuss about this replacing the all-female version in 2016, that they give the lead role to a little girl. Like that is the lead role of this film, and yet you see how many men in the chat really like this movie.
Absolutely. And I think that kind of is exposing the just how biased and just how broken the media truly is.
Yeah,
because
definitely.
it's clearly not about women's rights or about equality. Because if it was, then this is a movie that they should be supporting. Because as you just mentioned, right, McKenna Grace, she is the lead of this movie. She carries this movie.
Yeah,
And
she does.
She really does.
It's impressive.
And to be fair, she's got a lot of support, right? And for any young actor, you're going to need to have a good supporting cast. Paul Rudd's there. I think kind of like she's my favorite too, but I will say special place in my heart goes out to Podcast.
Oh yeah, he's great too.
Her best friend in the film, because she's an awkward kid who doesn't who doesn't have any friends, and so she meets this guy, and basically he calls himself Podcast. He calls himself Podcast because he has a podcast. I love that. Like as soon as he was just like, yeah, I'm Podcast because I have a podcast. And I'm like, that's fantastic. I love that. And he just walks around with his audio equipment the entire time, recording people, and I'm like, I want to listen to this dude's podcast.
And you believe their little friendship. Like you really did.
Absolutely, because you're like, they're both weird, but in different ways, right? Because she's that smart, nerdy weird, and then he is this creative weird, right?
Yeah.
And so, because they meet in summer school, and so clearly for her, she's like, this is ridiculous. I'm too smart for this nonsense. Whereas for him, he likely failed because he was so focused on his podcast and doesn't really know a whole lot about just general information. But he's so passionate about that specific part of his life, right? About being creative, that he's willing to dedicate basically his entire life. Again, walking around with the equipment at all times, ready to record at all times. And it's great. And there's also some really great moments that are kind of left there. And then there's a great payoff. And I won't say until we talk about spoilers, but there's a great
which episode he got going on.
Yes, exactly. So that gets laid out there saying, because Podcast himself says basically, to Phoebe, and to the character played by McKenna Grace, saying like, oh yeah, the podcast, is pretty good, but it really gets going, at around episode 46. And so it's like he's talking up his own podcast in that way and saying when it gets better. But basically that moment comes up later, and the way it does is just
hysterical.
Yes, great. And that's the other thing too, right? Is that not only do you have those really hilarious, terrible jokes, like almost like dad jokes, but even more awkward. But you also have, right, these really great moments as well, right? These different interactions that I think are also very just in and of themselves funny. And I mentioned this in my review, and I was thinking about it as I was watching the film. I can't remember laughing in a movie theater this year.
Yeah. No, this movie was genuinely very funny. As we're sitting here talking, okay, Natalie and I did a reaction to the last Spider-Man trailer.
Mm-hmm.
We start cracking up at the trailer because of the humor that they're trying to deliver. And it just was like, we were laughing at the movie, not with the movie. And it's like this entire movie, like the humor for me hit. Like I genuinely was laughing throughout this movie.
Yeah. Yeah, and absolutely. And I think that, as I said, a lot of it has to do with the acting and just the characters as well. And I think I'm seeing someone mention that for the actor that played Podcast, that was his first movie.
Oh, wow. Yeah, he did excellent.
Yeah. And I mean, you can tell like his character is definitely green. Like there's just no doubt about it, but it's the right kind of green. It's the character where, because he's not the lead, because he's the support, and because he has a very specific shtick, a good, well-handed or just firm-handed director can guide a green actor, especially a green young actor, to giving a performance where it's not going to be as obvious. It's not going to be like that cringe level that can sometimes happen with green actors and green performances. So knowing that now after the fact, I can see why that makes sense, and there might be some cues that maybe I can think back on that kind of showcase that. But overall, I mean, again, kudos to him for doing that.
Yes, definitely. Well, and two, us bringing up those two characters, and I know that's why you said, like Stranger Things. Mm-hmm. That again, that's kind of that 80s magic I'm talking about. Where the 80s you had the ETs and movies that had kids in it, which of course Stranger Things picked up with, but you had that magic that you just don't get movies like this very often. Like this is truly to me a family movie.
Yes. And that's the other thing too, is for people that don't like the film, they've said like, oh, it's a kid's movie. And I'm thinking to myself, but it's really not. I
No.
mean, it's a
Yeah.
PG-13 movie. It earns that PG-13 rating, not just because there's a couple of language, like there's a couple of words that are dropped because it's a PG-13 film, and obviously you can, mention those things like that. But I think that it also, it's, as you said, it's a family movie, and there's a difference. And I've made this comment on my channel a lot. There's a difference between a kids movie and a family movie.
There is.
Family,
Yes.
family movies can be enjoyed by the entire family, right? That's what that
Yes.
means. Whereas kids movies, it's, oh no, it can only be enjoyed by kids, and parents are either going to be able to tolerate it, or it's going to be driving them nuts, and they're going to be counting down the minutes of when they can leave.
Exactly. It's like, to me, Star Wars is a family movie. You can watch that as a family, but it's not a kids movie.
Yep. Despite what George Lucas might claim,
Yeah. We need to explain to him the difference of a kids movie or a family movie.
It's like he already, like, again, I think he's just trying to rewrite his own history, right? His own past setting. It was like, oh, it was always made for kids. It's like, or I guess he more so said that about the prequels than anything else. But it's still just like, you're like, come on, seriously? Your film's called Star Wars. Even for the prequels, it's Star Wars.
Yeah.
That's not a kid property, okay? Just because you have a character like Jar Jar Binks in there for the prequels does not make it a kid's movie. Anyway. But I will say, since I just saw Stephanie being one of my mods mention it, yes, please do not spoil anything in the chat. Stephanie B and Laura, both who are mods on the channel, they have every right to time out anyone and delete any comment that offers any spoilers. I think I know that Laura has seen the film, so she'll have a better idea of what things are spoilers. I don't think Steph has seen it yet. But anyway, yes, no spoilers in the chat. We'll get to a spoiler discussion towards the end. Don't worry. But we want to make sure that people can enjoy this film fully and appreciate it without all the spoilers. So again, thank you. Yeah. So obviously, McKenna Grace is great. Character of podcast is great. We've already kind of talked about Paul Rudd being just he's just being Paul Rudd.
He is.
Is his typical Paul Rudd self. There's this great sequence that had me, again, not even words being spoken, but I was laughing when he enters the Walmart.
Yes.
I don't know what it's just him walking, like the way he was just,
He's just so casually walking through.
It's like, seriously, like, if you're just gonna be like da 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 da, and then add on top of that like everything else that happens in the Walmart, and it's great. And it also is, again, this is not a kids movie, because there's also some very scary sequences in this movie, right? There's a scene where a ghost escapes, and I was like, oh man, that was pretty darn intense. I don't see how anyone can really, after a moment like that, especially language aside, how anyone can say that this is just a kids movie, or they should have marketed it as a kids movie instead. It's like, I think that the marketing could have been better, because marketing can always be better, but it's just not a kids movie. And I think the scary elements definitely play a role in that.
Definitely. Yeah, because there is, some. Would you say, I was trying to discuss this with my brother. It's like, would you say, I feel like the 1984 version may be a little scarier, spookier, but I don't know if that's just because I was little when I saw it. What is your take on that?
Yeah, I think that there's definitely some elements, especially with the effects that they had at the time, where there's some pretty heavy moments there. I think that it was trying to be actually, I don't know why. I think my brain just kind of like left my body for a second, because I was like, wait a minute, what am I talking about? That scene in the original film when Sigourney Weaver's character has the arms that pop out of the chair and grab her and bring her in. Oh no, that terrified me, and still to this day I'm like, no, thank you. No, thank you.
Well, and there's the library scene in the first Ghostbusters.
Yes, that's true. Oh my goodness, that is true. Oh yeah, it's so I would, yeah. So now that my brain is finally working again, yeah, I would say that the original was probably scarier.
That's what I'm leaning towards.
Yeah, but it is still scary. Like this one is still like, again, it's not a scary movie by any means,
Yeah.
but there are at least a couple of scary sequences.
Definitely.
Yeah. And there's one that someone had mentioned before, and I won't say what the character was, but I loved it. And it's in the Walmart scene. They use a character, and we'll go into more details in the spoiler territory, but what made me so happy was that they actually used animatronics.
I know. Yes, I noticed that my eyes picked that out pretty immediate, and I
Yeah.
just kind of enjoy that. I know you're the same way, and I've said it so many times on our show. I love practical effects. Like too
Yes.
much CGI has its place. It can definitely enhance things, but too much CGI, you lose me. Like I'm out. I'm done. I think that's kind of been my problem with Marvel is like there's just so much CGI, and it loses me.
Well, because they just look so artificial.
They do.
You know, and this is something I have a podcast that I do for my Keeper of the Bifrost patrons, Subscribe Star, etc. And I do it with John Flickinger of the Flickpick channel. Shout out to John. And something that he has always been very much like always focused on, or has always been able to really like, I think, really grasp and really explain in films is how just unrealistic and how just artificial so many modern films look. And a lot of it is because we've moved into now digital filmmaking, right? Where most of these movies, the vast majority, are shot using digital, right? Using, just pure digital formatting, using various types of CGI in every single sequence, not really innovating at all. And it's interesting to me because it's crazy to me how you have a film like Ghostbusters 2016, which had twice the budget of this one. And they had more CGI in the film. There is no doubt. But the CGI of that movie of 2016 Ghostbusters was terrible.
This movie looks 1,000 times better.
Yeah.
Like, because I don't know I thought the cinematography of this movie was great. Like, I thought this movie looked really good. It was a pretty movie.
Yeah. No, I absolutely agree. It's definitely not the cinematography for me. It wasn't a standout. It wasn't something where I was like catching that, because there's some movies where I'm looking at it. I'm thinking to myself, oh man, this is just. For instance, did you see the film The Green Knight?
No, but I've heard you talk about it on your channel, and I should watch it.
Yeah. So Green Knight, to me, that is beautiful cinematography, because like you can just kind of just feel it. The only other film I can think of is another film that came out this year called Wrath of Man. Did you get to see that with Jason Statham?
That's another one I've heard you talk about that I need to see. Yeah.
Well, Wrath of Man as well. It's again, this opening sequence. It has one of these fade shots where you're focused in on a subject, and then all of a sudden the camera is just slowly panning back. Slowly going back during this entire sequence of events, and you're seeing more and more and more about what's going on. And it's like, that's when you're like, ooh, this is what's making it good. Like this movement here, the cinematography for this film, it's good in that it doesn't distract you. You don't notice it. And that's a good thing, right?
Yeah.
There's different levels of cinematography and good cinematography, right? There's the cinematography where it's like, okay, it does exactly what it needs to do. Whereas there's others where it's so well done that it's a character in and of itself.
Yes. And do you know what? I think some of it is, as I'm thinking, as you're talking, it's even just, again, kind of back to MCU stuff. I'm just so happy to see a movie. It's like him driving out in the field in that car, like to see them actually out where they're supposed to be.
Yep.
Again, the two movies I love this year, A Quiet Place Part 2 and now Afterlife, they were filmed in like legit air. They were actually filmed out where they were supposed to be, not necessarily where they were supposed to be, but out in nature, not on a film stage is what I'm trying to get at.
Yes, exactly. And there's just something to be said about it, because a sound stage is never, ever going to be able to capture the realism of real life, you know? No matter how great our technology gets, no matter how advanced everything gets, nothing is ever going to be able to match the real thing. Nothing's going to be able to match on-location shooting. And I think the best example of that is comparing Lord of the Rings trilogy to the Hobbit trilogy. Lord of the Rings trilogy, even all these years later, still looks fantastic. Still looks great.
It does.
The CG obviously doesn't really hold up as well, just because it's hard to really hold up. But all the other stuff looks great because the vast majority of it was done on location. It was done with actual scenery, with actual things in the foreground, without it just being blue or green screen. And it looks fantastic. And in fact, I was just looking, because I digitize all my films, so I get 4Ks and I put them on my own server. It's like my own personal Netflix, because it basically doesn't compress it when I play it. So it's like putting the disc in, but not having to always get the discs in. I'm weird about that. It's one of those things. But anyway, I was like, because on my files, I was like, oh, I still have the Lord of the Rings trilogy, and it's the extended editions of it. And I was just playing it through, and I'm like, man, this looks so good, because they shot it on film and because they had done it all with practical. It looks fantastic.
They did. Odin, I realized I forgot my charger. Let me get my charger so my computer doesn't shut off. I'll be right back.
Okay. Do you want me to pull you out of the, like, are you okay with the image being up still? Okay, perfect. Great. Well, as she is going to do that, let me go ahead and say hello to some more people in the chat. And again, apologies for any chats that may have been skipped. Joey Horn, what's going on? He is a member on the channel saying, I'm looking forward to seeing this film. Love the originals. Okay, I think that if you love the originals, that you'll love this one. Forever Sci-Fi, yes, that's the line that we're talking about. It really takes off at episode 46. Again, that character of podcast is so great. Let's see here. The Fitness Channel with Kenny Lee. What is going on? He also just came to see Ghostbusters, or came out of seeing Ghostbusters, and really liked it. So glad to hear that you liked it. Very much appreciate that. Let's see. Midnight's Edge After Dark. Tom says, I like podcasts, but the podcast character is becoming a trope quickly. I can see that. Yeah, there was another film, I think, that came out either this year or last year, where there's someone with a podcast. But where this one succeeds, where those other ones fail, is that this one's actually funny and entertaining.
Yeah, he's actually like a charming character.
Yeah. And the way he does it is also great, too, because he's got his little shotgun mic. He has it where it's almost like a holster, which I also thought was just great, because like every time he was done, he just put in his little holster. And again, just the way he was doing it, I saw a lot of myself in that character, right? It's just being that nerdy type of character, with it being that creative type, and less so the science-y type. And that kind of reminds me also of one of the reasons why I love McKenna Grace's character. I don't know if you caught this or not, but there's a part of the film when, obviously this is not spoilers, because anything that's in trailers to me doesn't count as spoilers.
Yes,
obviously they find the Ecto-1, right, in their farm, or in their like barn house. And so they're driving it around, and there's a part where she's going into it, and there's a line where I thought she was going to say, like, I'm not a this, I'm a that. And I thought that she was going to say, I'm not this, I'm a Ghostbuster. That's what I thought she was going to say. But instead, she says, no, I'm a scientist. And like, I was just like, at that one moment, thinking to myself, that's awesome, right? They could have gone for a very cheap line there that could have had further implications. But instead, it was no, I'm a scientist, and my family comes from scientists. And I think that this is something that is incredibly it's incredibly endearing, and I thought it was great. I really did. They really weren't trying to push any real agendas. There were really only a couple of somewhat political comments made. One of them was dealing with fracking. Like, there are a couple couple comments about fracking, right? Because are these earthquakes that are happening in this area, and so there's comments made about fracking, but it's kind of like offhand stuff. It's not really anything other than that. And then there's another one where essentially they're talking about one of the characters, and I don't want to say too much because I think it does bring more spoiler talk in. But basically the line is saying, "Oh, that's pretty woke for that time in history," is the line given, and I'm like, okay, it's a throwaway line, and it doesn't really hurt anybody. So I'm okay with that.
This movie, I mean, it's pretty much just sheer entertainment. Kind of like, again, a throwback to when we just kind of got entertainment.
Yes, exactly. It's just meant to be entertaining. Yeah.
Do you know what's funny, too, when you're speaking about podcasts?
Yeah.
Like, so all these characters are nerds in different ways. As far as Paul Rudd is a big nerd in his own
Hmm.
way, and then the two kids are nerds. And he calls out both kids for being nerds, even though he's a massive nerd.
That's true. Yeah, and I think that again kind of leads into why a lot of people like this film. Is it's not just these one-liners that exist from McKenna Grace's character or the character podcast, but also there's these great situational comedy
There
that is
is,
in it,
yeah.
right? Because as you said, right? Oh, you're a bunch of nerds, and then what happens? She starts to ask questions, and he's like, "Oh, oh, you know what this is, and then all of a sudden he starts to get nerdy, right? He starts to go off on his thing, and you're just like, okay, this is kind of helping to flesh. Again, it's a great situational moment, right? Because he's going
Yes.
from the, oh, this is just summer school, why do you even care, to the, oh, this is my job and I actually really care about it. It's great. It's
And,
fantastic.
and then another thing that did okay, because this is not a spoiler. Did it crack? Because I won't say. Did it crack you up when he played that movie? Like I was cracking up over that movie.
Actually, which one? Because there's two at
Oh,
least
both of them
films.
got me. Both.
Yes.
Both.
Oh, it was. Oh, yes, 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 and especially the moments that they were showing in those movies too. And that's, again, that also goes back to the comment we made earlier about it not being a kids movie, because in neither of those movies are you like,
No.
oh yeah,
No.
that's something that kids are gonna watch. And again, situational comedy, right? You're having this summer school, right? Because it really isn't a spoiler, right? They're having this summer school, and it's this kind of like, the situation itself is a joke, right? Oh, guess what? They're in summer school, and so therefore, what is their summer school in a public, like summer school at a public school? Oh, they're just gonna watch movies and do nothing, right? They're just gonna sit there and do nothing. And so, what are the movies they get to watch? Oh, they get to watch about a movie about a dog that gets rabies and starts to bite people. It's just like, what? And I won't mention the other one because if anyone thinks of that as being somewhat spoilery, I don't think that it is.
Yeah.
The other one I think will also make you happy,
Yeah.
but it's so great, it really is. Um, but before going into some of the other stuff, JS, thank you for the $5. That's a super chat. Says, watched Ghostbusters last night. It was a fun movie, and I loved how they honored the original cast. I have
Yeah.
to agree. And there are some people who don't. There are some people who have, and I've seen this in my comments a lot, saying, I wanted more time. Like I wanted more of
I
that.
had
And
that in my comments.
yeah, and I'm like, I get it. I understand what you want, but think about it. Like think about if you were somehow able to get right all of those actors in a 90 to 100-minute movie. It's not going to be good.
No.
Even if it's well written, it's not going to be good, because then you'll be the ones complaining, saying, "Oh, why were they in the whole movie? They're just so old. They can't do this anymore. This is so unrealistic." And it's like, exactly, which is why it plays out the way that it does, with it being a lot more limited in their way. And some people, I think, are wrongly assuming that it's this passing of the torch type of thing. But once we get to talk about spoilers, which we'll get into soon, since we are, about 30 minutes out of the end of the podcast. So we won't dive into spoilers yet. We'll make sure to make that clear. We'll kind of spend like the very end talking about that, because we're going to talk about a couple more things before that time. But I think that when we start to talk about that, I think it does reveal, again, the purpose of what this movie was, what it was trying to do, and why there are some people who are fans of the film, I think, are kind of taking the ending in a way to assume other things happening that I don't think, if you really pay attention, the film's trying to do. Like, I don't think the
Yeah.
film's trying to set up for other things.
I mean, it definitely doesn't have to. To me, this
Yeah.
feels like a very good close.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. And to do that while at the same time introducing new people, I think is a very powerful thing. And
Yeah.
obviously that could be tainted if they decide to do any type of spin-off stuff, but I don't think that they will. That's just my own thought.
Yeah. I think, to me, again, I clearly enjoyed this movie. I think they did a great job of, it's exactly like what's funny is people saying we need more time. Well, it'd almost be kind of like Indiana Jones 5, where we all
Hmm.
know that Harrison Ford is too old for the situation, but yet
You
they're
don't even
going for it.
And you don't even have to talk about 5. Let's talk about Crystal Skull.
Yeah.
Let's talk about the movie that should never have even happened. One of the biggest issues with it was the fact that even then he was old, you know?
Especially now.
Especially now. I mean, it's even more so now. And even then it was like, come on, like seriously?
Yeah.
And it's like, would people have really have wanted that in this? I don't think so. Right?
I think what we got was good, really.
Yeah. It was as good as it could have been, and as good as I said earlier as it needed to be. And I think that's the second part that people are not quite getting of, but why did they have to do this? Like, why did they have to focus on McKenna Grace and Finn Wolfhard, etc.? Because they want people to come see the movie in 2021.
Yes.
And the issue is that you're not going to be able to do that if you do the things that you want, right? Like, this film gives so much fan service in so many ways that it's like, if you can't even appreciate the fan service given in addition to the very practical decisions that they make, it's hard to really be able to take that opinion seriously, because it's like,
Yeah.
I want to see where you're coming from. I want to understand, but it seems like if you had full autonomy and control of this project, I don't think, one, this movie would have been made because of certain personalities of some of the original characters just not being on board with it. And then I think that it would have ended up being like an Indiana Jones 4 and 5 situation.
Yeah, I agree. Definitely. Well, and I wanted to say too, did you like, because, I use the word magic quite a bit as far as what it created for me.
Mm-hmm.
But did you like, I really love the score. Like, the score caught my ears multiple times. And again, it has kind of that intriguing magical sense to it that you used to get kind of in the 80s.
Yes. So it's one of those things though where I don't know if it's any of the original stuff. Because for me, the score, the part of the score that got me were all the callbacks.
Yes.
Any and all of the callbacks that they had in the movie, which make reference back to the original and come in at key moments, right? Come in at moments that just make sense, that work, that almost add again to that comedy level, right? So as I said, with so many things, whether it's cinematography, whether it's music, right, can kind of have a character in and of themselves. I think that there's moments where, again, you get those lines from the original score in, and you're just like, oh yeah, this is a perfect moment for that, right? This is a perfect
Yes.
moment for that riff, you know?
Yeah, because it was kind of that original score, like when she's walking through the basement, and even scenes like that. And I said this in our review, again, kind of call back to the 80s. They allowed scene. This movie is 2 hours long, and that's all it
Yeah.
needs to be. But because it's 2 hours with what they have to work with, there's, like, say the scene her walking through the basement. I don't feel like I'm giving much away in that.
No.
They allow the camera, it's like the 80s. It allows it to breathe. Like, it allows her to walk down the hall, like, and to have the music playing that brings some awe to the moment. Like, uh, they just did a great job again, because today it's like, again, whether it's J.J. Abrams' Star Wars or Marvel movies, they go at a breakneck pace,
Yeah.
and it just nonstop, like until it's over.
Yeah.
And it's like, this was refreshing to, like, it took its time, not in a slow way. The movie's not slow at all, but it took its time telling its story. And I really appreciated its pace.
Yeah. I agree. And it's funny because this movie has sparked a lot of people like putting out there of bring back the 2 hour movies, like bring back this, bring back that. And it's interesting to me because I'm like, oh no, they still exist. They're just not as common. And at the same time, it's like, we can also bring back the 90-minute movies. You know, we already have 90-minute movies that still come out. I had mentioned this last night. Venom 2. It's not the best film in the world, but it's 90 minutes, and that's a part of why. Yeah, definitely not one of the best films in the world. But hey, it for me at least, this was again a purely subjective experience. I was able to sit back and just mindlessly enjoy it. Still
Yes.
recognizing the whole time, I'm like, man, this is bad. But you know what? I'm having fun. Everyone around me is
Yeah.
having fun. Okay, I'll give in for this one. While it's still acknowledging that it's not a good film. But the reason why it's making money, it's a 90-minute film. It was able to entertain a lot of people. And I think that this is a film that's going to do the same thing, right? I think that this film's also entertaining a lot of people, right? Entertaining various audiences. It is definitely skewing more towards families. Like that's kind of what we've been seeing right now. Matinee shows have been doing a lot better, which indicates more family love there. But I think that it is very much a sign that this is a film that is going to do well, because it isn't, as you said, it isn't that 2.5 hour huge marathon Marvel type movie. And instead, it's a completely digestible, little over 2 hours, and not a lot of it feels wasted. Like there's a couple of things that you could have maybe have cut out, or a couple of things that maybe you could have fleshed out a bit more story-wise to make things better. But when you add things on, you realize, okay, but if you did that, it'd be a little bit more bloated. Or if you cut these things out, then it'd be a little bit more hollow. So it's definitely not a perfect film, but there is a balance for what they have, right? There is a balance for what they're able to get out and what they're able to put out there. So
definitely.
Yeah. So we'll go through these last couple of super chats that came in, and then we'll dive into spoilers. All right. So spoilers are coming up, but I think that Stephanie B had a great suggestion saying, don't leave when we talk spoilers. Just hit the mute button, right? Just hit the mute button, and then you can, still hang out and still be a part of things. Obviously, if you don't want to be in the chat, because people in the chat might start spoiling things still, hey, you're more than welcome to do whatever it is you want to do. But I would say, hang around still. Drop a like button at least before you go. But Damanjanai, what's going on, brother? Thank you very much. What's going on? Wait, you call him Jumanji?
Yeah, we say welcome to Jumanji.
Welcome to Jumanji.
He's
nice.
finally just embraced it because he realizes we're going to call him that.
Well, Damanjanai, thank you for the $2 super chat. Says, yo, bro, hello to the lovely Michelle.
Hello, Damanji.
And then we also have $5 Canadian from Mr. Buttcrack Media. Thank you, Mr. Buttcrack. He says, hail OMB and hello to the lovely Michelle with the 2 L's. Yes.
Hello, Mr. Buttcrack. The loveliest Buttcrack on YouTube, we say.
Oh, man. And of course, because he must have heard that we were about to go into some spoiler discussion. And he, of course, he's the man that gets around on YouTube, is what I like to say. Mr. Drunk 3PO is here. And he says,
Jay.
Hey, Michelle, I see that you don't say hi to me.
Well, he does this to Natalie every single time.
Well, hey, at least he's being consistent. But Drunk, thanks for stopping by, man, and thank you for that super chat. I appreciate it. All right, so we are going to now dive into some spoilers. So I'm going to go ahead and put this little thing up on the screen. Boom, right? So we are in spoiler discussion mode. So if you don't want to hear any spoilers, it might be a good time either to mute or to leave. Or if you don't care about spoilers, hey, hang around. All right, let's talk about some of these spoilers. So one of the things that we've been kind of alluding to throughout the entire discussion is the ending, and the ending causing us to have some emotions, right? Some emotional responses. And a lot of people have been saying tears or brink of tears or kind of, moist in the eyes is kind of like where both of us have kind of fallen in that reaction.
A little watery.
Yeah, absolutely. And let's talk about why that is the case. And the first thing I will say is this: if you're going to bring an actor back from the dead, I don't think there's a more tasteful way than what they did with Harold Ramis in this movie.
And it works so fittingly in Ghostbusters.
Yes, exactly. Exactly. It was the perfect film for it. They also were incredibly respectful, right? Because there's that scene at the beginning where you know who it is, right? At the very beginning, right? There's that scene. They never show you his face. They show you profile, so you know it's Egon in the very beginning, but they never show you anything. And so they save that moment for the end when they finally reveal, and the way they do it, that's what got me. It wasn't just because I think some people right started to tear up maybe when they saw all four together again. They gave us that
me where I teared up.
That wasn't weird because so you teared up the same moment I teared up.
Yep.
So so the first time you see him, it's McKenna Grace is fighting off against the big bad of the movie, who is oh my goodness, why am I blanking out on the god's name?
Gozer,
that's it. Yeah, Gozer.
Yeah.
Right, so are you a god? Right, so Gozer comes back, right, and I love that tying it in, right. It again ties the films all together, as not only was Gozer the big bad of the first movie, but it's just the entirety, right, of this universe. Gozer is the big bad, and so not only do you have that, but then you have this moment where McKenna Grace, she's got the proton pack, she's fighting off against Gozer, and she's starting to lose. And then all of a sudden, you see ghost hands come up to support her, and it fades back, and it's Harold Ramis, CGI'd, but done so well.
Yes.
And just even thinking about it, I'm getting goosebumps again. I'm getting emotional. I was just like, because it's that moment. It's like I'm here for you.
It was a powerful. That's where Natalie was even crying. I mean, like it was a powerful moment. It was perfect. Like they couldn't have done that more perfect.
Yes. And I know that I was one of the persons, I was very concerned when the synopsis came out, right? Because the synopsis talked about how it's, a single mother and her two kids, right? So, oh, great, another story about a bad dad. But what we find out is that he wasn't a bad dad. In fact, he gave up everything. And I love, it was McKenna Grace who was given this line. He gave up even his family.
Yeah.
To try and save everybody, right? He literally gave up the most precious thing to him, which is his family, because he knew he had to, because none of his friends believed him. He knew his family wouldn't believe, like his family didn't believe him, thought he was crazy. So he knew he had to go. He had to leave. And so it's that moment when he's supporting his granddaughter. And I was just like, that's the moment where you're like, boom, there it is. He loves her. Like that's like almost like that character redemption in a way.
It was.
Where it's like, no, he wasn't a bad dad. In fact, he was great. And then it's obviously accentuated at the very end when before he fades, gets to hug his daughter. And they have that reconciliation.
Before this whole scene, it was even sweet as he kind of guides his daughter down there and shows him the board. Like he's kept up with her entire life, and she's beginning to see like he really did care.
Mm-hmm.
So that was sweet too, because yes, they definitely do not go like they don't go the Luke Skywalker route of like he just really sucks of a person.
Yeah. He's like, you get to the proton pack and he's just like, throwing it over his shoulder, like, she's about to like bring it, put it back together. Instead of helping her, he's like ripping it apart, as some, stingy old ghost, right? No, he cares, right? And you could tell towards the end, right, when he's holding his device, right, to tell when the ghosts are, he's got a plan. He's got something planned, and you don't know how he knows. Obviously, he was a genius, and so he understood a lot about the ghost world, right? He knew a lot about the afterlife, and I think that he understood, right, that when he died, that his presence would somehow remain. So he was ready to help, and that moment again, just thinking again, the hands just coming in, helping support, the fade out, and then all of a sudden you see, and it's not just Egon, you see Harold Ramis, you see an aged Harold Ramis, and again, if you're going to bring someone back from the dead respectfully, that's the way to do it, because they don't try and add a voice. At no point does the ghost speak. It's just the image. They don't overdo it. You only see that character that way for a certain period of time, and in a lot of ways, it's a love letter to Egon. It's a love letter to Harold Ramis. It's a love letter to Ghostbusters. Really?
Yes. Well, and before you even, because this scene is awesome and powerful in multiple fronts.
Yeah.
Because we even talked about on our channel, The Force Awakens. I said that if I could write that script, when Rey is beat by Kylo, you could even give Rey her moment, but after she's kind of beat by Kylo, let Luke appear. Like the crowd would have gone wild, wild. Yep. And anyways, you get that here because the kids, they need help. Like you can feel it in the audience. And I like nudged my niece and I was like, the Ghostbusters are going to show up because it was like right at the nick of time. Like, boom, there they are standing there ready to help. So you get that where you just want to like clap and applaud as watching the movie. And then you get the scene of seeing him helping his granddaughter, which brings tears to your eyes as you watch that scene. Yes. So it goes from like heck yes to crying all like within a minute.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah. And again, it gives, and it's in that way where the storytelling, I think, really is at the strongest. You know, the weakest storytelling is by far like that, you know, the middle of the film where they're kind of diving into like the person who like founded it, you know, and you find the founder in the grave. By the way, great that J.K. Simmons played that part as short of a role that it was, you know, where Gozer's, you know, he goes up and he's like, I built this temple for you so that we can rule the world. So, and then just Gozer just rips him in half. It's like, oh, that's great. That's just, you know, fantastic. By the way, hail to Tina. So she must have come out of the film. And so I hope that you liked it, Tina. But yeah, I just, as you said, you have that emotional moment, right, with the granddaughter. You then have that moment where, again, after the fact, where it's fading back and you see the three OGs, right? By the way, it has to be said that, oh my goodness, Ernie Hudson.
Yeah.
Looks fantastic.
Like, yeah, he does.
Like, because they're going down the line, right? And it's just like, you're like, okay, Dan Aykroyd, Bill Murray, okay. They look their age. They get to Ernie Hudson, you're like, has it only been like 10 years for you? Because that's what it seems like. It seems like it's only been 10 years since the first or second film.
Oh, yes. Yeah, he was great. And they give him a great comedic moment because, again, so it goes from yes to tears to then once Egon is with them and like he begins looking over at him and they played it so comedically. Like I was cracking up at the way he just kind of looked like, okay, like this is happening.
It is.
It was great.
Absolutely. And and then it's funny because like, and then they don't give the ghost any words, right? They don't overdo it. And instead it's just like they give him facial reactions, and they're perfect. Like every single one of them is for the right reason, like because it conveys that love of granddaughter. In that scene, it conveys that like, you know, like yeah, I'm still here, like I'm still around. And it kind of ties back to also a part earlier, which I thought at first I was like, ooh, that's a bit harsh, because Dan Aykroyd is the character that says it, which I think it would have been much more, I think, of a real life scenario because of the tension that Bill Murray had with Harold Ramis in real life. But at one point, the character played by Dan Aykroyd says, you know, like, oh, he can burn in hell. And I was just like, oh man, that's like really intense. Good. So yeah. And so, yeah, seriously, I'm like, what the hell? Who wrote that line? But that kind of, you bring it in and you're like, oh yeah, this is just, everything else is fantastic. And speaking of the Dan Aykroyd moment, so we mentioned earlier of a great comedic scene in the writing, because, you know, we have that new character of Podcast, and he's like, oh yeah, it really picks up at episode 42. And then all of a sudden, Dan Aykroyd's there and he's talking with a Podcast. And, you know, basically it's revealed that Podcast one listener, because he has one listener, is Dan Aykroyd. And, you know, because Dan Aykroyd says, yeah, because it really picks up at episode number 46.
I cracked up yet again. It was comedic. It was just that there was such great comedy in this movie.
Yes, absolutely. Again, whether it was the situational comedy, whether it was the actual, you know, the actual written comedic jokes, the dry humor of the McKenna Grace dad jokes, which again, so.
Oh, and the possession was funny in this movie for both characters, the mom and Paul Rudd.
Yes,
like when the mom like rips off her clothes and this sparkling dress is on, like I cracked up.
Oh yeah, and again, you know, some people might think like, oh, they're bringing the whole Keymaster and thing like that back, right? And again, the story is the weakest part, right? Because it is definitely very derivative, right?
Yeah.
It borrows, obviously, it borrows a lot from the original with characters like Gozer coming back, but it does so for a purpose, and I think that purpose is to bring a close to the story. And the other thing that's great is, so the daughter, the last time that we see the Egon ghost, Egon is hugging his daughter, so they reconcile. And I love also, it didn't happen right away either. Like the daughter's like walking up slowly, and you're like almost like I don't know what's gonna happen, right?
Yeah.
Is he gonna because like, I could see them writing in like a slap and then a hug or something, but instead it's just a like slow and then hug. And then you can see like he's crying, she's crying, and then all of a sudden you can tell, okay, his life's work or his last mission, right? His final thing to do has been done, so that he just starts to fade away, and like that's how it ends for her. Like it just ends hugging her dad, and it's just again, it's not about a bad dad in this situation. It's about a dad actually getting redemption by us understanding more so that he wasn't a bad dad. In fact, he was a great dad that saved the world.
Well, and there's an emotional scene with Phoebe when like she kind of cries with her mom about her grandfather. And I think, and that's what makes him like helping her so sweet, is because like she is him in a way. Like he was that nerdy kid that was really smart, that didn't fit in. And it's like, so she finds someone in her grandfather who like understands her. Because she would have been like kind of very not misunderstood, just not understood kind of in a way by her mother because of her intelligence level.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And it's, again, it's something that I just don't think, I don't think enough people are really appreciating, like just how deep that level goes. Right?
Yeah.
Because they're so distracted by, oh, I only got them for like 5 minutes at the end. It's like, that's what it needed to be.
Yes.
Like that's and also if we're gonna be honest, that's probably all that Bill Murray was willing to do. Yeah. So it's like, be thankful that you even got, again, you go back, exactly. You go back to Star Wars, guess what? We don't ever have that moment. And we're never gonna get that moment. And even if, and it would not surprise me if Disney, right, and all of its ridiculousness, decided to do some convoluted similar moments, right, to borrow it basically, to say, oh, I guess that's how it's done. Oh, I guess let's do that. Let's give the people what they want, right, and let's put the main four, or the big three back on screen together, right? But it's, it would be so hollow. This is not hollow. It's done with so much heart. It's done with so much emotion. It's done in such a taste, and again, it's done in a tasteful way. You go to Rogue One, where they bring Tarkin back, and it's like, no, you're just using your CGI technology to bring an actor back from the dead for really a movie that does not need to exist. Yeah, and a character that you don't necessarily need to have in that story, right?
No, you just kind of needed Krennic.
Yeah, exactly. You could have written the story in a way where you did not need to have that character, but they did it. They brought the character back from the dead, and to me, it was like, okay, let's just this one, it doesn't do that. It's no, we're doing this film because we were not able, right? Unfortunately, Harold Ramis and Bill Murray were not able to get their differences across while Harold Ramis was alive. Thank goodness, as the story goes, when Harold Ramis was getting towards the end of his life, Bill Murray finally came, and they finally apparently reconciled. So thank God that was able to happen. But it was, again, this was done in a way where it again was done as a tasteful homage to Harold Ramis, an homage to the original Ghostbusters, and it was done tastefully. At no point did I think to myself, oh, this is I don't like them doing this. It was I'm so glad they did this, because this is, I think, the only way that you can really say goodbye to this character properly.
Yes, definitely. It was very, I mean, again, it's what made everyone cry. I mean, it was just very tastefully done.
Yes.
And it fit the story. The story needed that.
Yep. And if it didn't fit the story, I think it could have been viewed as untasteful. But because it is Ghostbusters, they do deal with the afterlife. It it knew exactly the kind of film that it was, the kind of film that it could be, and it just drove with that. And it's very clearly that the Reitmans, that they had a good grasp of what and how to do that. And then also once Harold Ramis fades away, what do you have? You have this great moment where it fades into the sky, and then all of a sudden, what do you have on the screen for Harold? And it's just like,
yes,
exactly, that's what this all was for. Was we want to complete the story. We want to do the third film that Harold Ramis wanted to do for so long and never got to. This is the way in which we do it for him, and we get it done. And I guess that just brings to like the last bit of spoilers, which would be, someone was mentioning it in the chat, right? So Ernie Hudson, right? He gets Ecto-1, right? He gets Ecto-1 back. And that to me was a sign of a couple of things. And then also there's a couple of post-credit scenes. So Sigourney Weaver also does come back. Some people were also like, why was she only in at the... And again, probably because of her schedule. Because I think is she in Avatar 2 through 5 again or something?
I think she is.
So yeah, so she's busy. She's filming stuff. So that's probably all the time that they had for her. And again, probably more so to do with Bill Murray than with her, to be honest.
Yeah.
Probably it's like, oh, Bill Murray can only do so many scenes. But there's a great scene between Bill Murray and him, Bill Murray and her, and it's great. Yeah. It's funny. It's done very tastefully. And then there's this last scene where it's kind of like this epilogue to the movie itself, where you have the character of was it Annie Potts, talking with Ernie Hudson, and it's him, explaining like his empire, and he's the one that is supporting Dan Aykroyd and his work, right? So Dan Aykroyd, like either he does know or doesn't know that the person paying for his rent is him. And so it then also, goes into giving respect to the character of Egon, right? And then they have that great clip, too, between Harold Ramis and Annie Potts' like where they show it from, like, was that was the second movie? Was that a second movie or the first movie where they were showing that scene where they were talking and the coin was given?
I can't remember.
Yeah. And because it also could have just been an extra scene that never made it into the final product either.
Yeah, because I know what you're talking about, and I didn't it didn't necessarily click in my mind of what that was like, where that was from. Yeah,
because like at first I was like, I don't quite understand, and then just the jump forward and her have the coin. What I was hoping for there, though, because this is something that I got wrong. So Odin was wrong, everybody. I thought that Phoebe, I thought that the character played by McKenna Grace, I thought that she was the granddaughter of Egon and Annie Potts. Because when you look at her, she looks like the perfect combination of those two characters.
Yeah.
But they don't ever establish that, and so that never happened. And I was hoping that when they were showing that scene of them talking, I was like, oh wait, she's going to secretly have been the granddaughter of this girl too. But then obviously that would mean that her mom would not have to have known her mom. So that obviously would have caused a wrinkle. But, hey, you can't always get what you want, right? Yeah. So I think that this sequence, though, again, leads to the Ecto-1 being pulled back into the old station, which he's been able to buy. And remember, he at one point says during that last sequence when they're all the Ghostbusters together, saying like, "What's happened to you, girl? Like, I'm gonna fix you back up, right? I'm gonna bring you back home, basically." And he does. He brings her back home, parks her, and then and before the end, it goes to that system, right, that held all the ghosts in it that we've seen before, and the alarm starts going off, right? And so we're like, oh, like everyone in theater's like, oh man. They're setting up for a sequel, aren't they? They're setting up for the story to continue. But then what happens? Nothing. Mm-hmm. And then what pops up on the screen? It's the new version of the ghost. That's the marshmallow version. And it makes like a little funny sound. To me, because I think it was Tom was saying they left it open-ended. To me, that left it not. Like to me, and everything else that happened leading up to that point, it said, no, we're closing this. This story is closed.
Yeah.
And that, oh, you think we're going to do more? No. We're going to end this with a joke instead, right? As a gotcha. oh, you thought we were going to be like those other studios that's just going to keep on doing. No, we're not going to. So I took that as them saying we're not going to bring these new characters back. How did you take that ending?
Well, I hadn't really thought about it until my niece was like, "Do you think they'll do a second one?" And it's like, I mean, I think they can if they want to. So I think Tom is right on that. It can be open-ended as far as the way you want to interpret it, that they could very easily. But I think what you're saying is totally right too, is like, we don't need it. Like you're not going to be able to create the same magic you did at the end of this movie in another movie. So just let it be. Like,
yes. It would be like a Toy Story 4.
Yes. Yes. Like just let this is it. Like you did you have a trilogy now, and that's all that's needed.
Yep. Ghostbusters 2016 does not exist. Right. That is just out. Does not exist at all. Not like it existed in the minds of any, hardcore fans anyway. But this film, again, as you said, has this perfect endpoint. You don't need it, right? It's not needed. And it is a fair point to say that, okay, but studios will be studios, right? Studios, if this film especially sees that this movie is a big money maker, will say, oh, well, this one's making money. We can't just not do another one. But I feel like if they did, I feel like they would make it a separate, like, they would do an actual, like, spin-off, like in a proper sense, where I think they'd bring in new people so it exists in the same universe, but it's not a part of that storyline. If you get what I mean. So it's not in a new universe, but it's not directly tied, because like you for instance, you would not get the Ecto-1 again. Like you would not get Ernie Hudson again. If they were gonna do it. That's the only way because if they do decide to make another one, to add a fourth one on, which again I think would be a terrible idea if they did. I hope they don't. Then as you said, right, all they're doing is doing a Toy Story 4, where it's like you take a perfect ending to the story and then decide just to carry it forward for money. And I don't like that.
No, I hope they let it lie.
Yes. Leave it where it lies, as Shooter McGavin says. You have to hit the ball where it lies. Just leave it where it lies.
Exactly.
We did have one super chat before we wrap things up come in to say, any opinion on Slimer not being a part of the movie?
What did you think of that?
I was okay with it.
Yeah, I mean, it did affect my enjoyment.
Because, yeah, sure, Slimer is iconic, right? Slimer's like iconic to the overall story, as far as, just as a well-known entity within the lore, right? But I've never viewed that character as being one that I really need to see. I just not have, and they do replace it with another character that I think is also fine because it's a new ghost, right? They actually adapt and create a new type of ghost that I think also is menacing, and it works very well as being the first ghost that they catch as well. Which is also great because it shows that this younger character, right, the character by McKenna Grace, is also not perfect. She's very smart, but she ain't perfect. That's why it takes them so long and takes them literally like destroying the town, which that whole thing too at the end where you're like, okay, they're going to jail and everything to that extent. It was great. But any other spoilers though that maybe we haven't talked about that you wanted to mention before I took the spoilers thing down?
No, I think that's pretty much it. I will say this is a really spoiler because the other two kids are so good. I think Finn Wolfhard does a good job. He just gets, he's not the lead. The other two get so much more time.
Yes,
but he is like a good guy.
Exactly. Yeah. And I think that might be something too, where people will say, I wish Finn Wolfhard had more of a character. He seems kind of like they put him in there just to try and get the Stranger Things audiences. And here's where my take on that would be. Well, yeah, that's why they cast him. Like
exactly.
Whether his character is big or not,
his
casting alone is the reason why.
Yes, exactly.
Oh man. And Rogue Disney, you bring up a good point, right? Of the character yeah, the one real flaw, I guess, to the character played by McKenna Grace, of Phoebe, is that she's got a bit of a temper, and
Yes, she
she
does.
does threaten a police officer. I almost forgot that part, but I was like, oh, you're right, she does.
I like that though. Give her a little personality.
Yeah, absolutely. And again, also show that she can be a little flawed as well.
Yes. Yeah.
Anyway, so that is going to be it for any spoiler talk. So if you're in the chat, if you could hold off on any other spoiler discussions, that would be fantastic. That'd be great. Laura, I know that you had to go, but I totally agree. I really wish those characters had gotten together. Like, again, that was what my own thought was. I was looking at who they cast, and I was like, oh, she's the perfect combination of these two. And they didn't have at least the second part of that combination added in there, sadly enough. But Laura, thank you for being here, and also thank you for the happy Thanksgiving and great week. Thank you very much for that, Laura. I appreciate it. You have a happy Thanksgiving as well. And I think I have another super chat to get to, and then we'll go ahead and wrap things up. I want to make sure I read through it and make sure there's no spoilers in it, just in case. I don't think it does. So I don't think this is a spoiler, anybody in the super chat. But again, it would have popped up in y'all's chat too. So I guess you would have known that anyway. So anyway, Stargate 404, thank you for the $10 super chat, says, sorry I'm late, but I thought it was okay. I think he said okay. I didn't like them emasculating the brother, except for liking cars. Phoebe was a stereotypical genius STEM girl. Spengler, deadbeat dad, and so is Phoebe. No, Stargate. Again, that kind of goes more into what we were just talking about in the spoiler section. But no, I don't think, other than, it's not that he was emasculated. I think that it was just that his character was not the focus.
Yeah, because he even takes kind of some masculine traits of like going to get a job because he knows his mother doesn't have money and things like that. He's definitely not masculine. He's just not a big part of this movie.
He's literally working on cars. It's not that he likes cars. He's working on cars.
Yeah, he fixes it.
Yes. And other than like one little thing, which does get fixed because of certain elements of the film that we've already addressed. Like, again, and then what does he do? He goes on a joyride. Like, again, he is very much like he was the very epitome of young teenage boy. So I don't really understand. Emasculation is not the word that I think you were looking for. Because
and he lies about his age because he wants to impress this girl.
Exactly. And I guess he likes girls. So hey, there's that too. So I mean, I don't think that emasculate. I don't think that was the word you're looking for. If you're saying he was not a lead or he was not a main character, that is true, absolutely. But again, that's just kind of how it is. And he does play a role in the film, though. He plays the supporting character that he needs to play. And as I said, not only in the story does he play the character he needs to play, but more importantly, he plays the character that the movie needed it to be, specifically because of his name recognition, to try and bring the people in. So that, I think, is also an important element to this that needs to be talked about. But as far as the Phoebe being the stereotype, it's like, no, she was playing a character who was connected to another character and was the perfect embodiment of being the grandchild of that character. I mean, again, like, I'm not picking up what you're laying down there. But anyway, that is going to bring us to the end because we are a little over time today. Though YetiCast, I saw, just came into the chat, so shout out to YetiCast. I know that y'all hang out, do video. Y'all do, like, what was it, once a week? Y'all do a team up?
We don't always do once a week, but we have started doing some videos to put on his channel where we just kind of make fun of like stupid stuff people do.
Yeah. I was watching a bit of that one the other day and I was just like, oh yeah, like I got to the first video of the guy spraying down the Starbucks or whatever with Hand sanitizer.
It
Oh,
was
it was
so
terrible.
bad.
Oh, it was so cringe. So cringe.
And then he lifts the lid off and throws it at him.
Oh, I didn't get to that. I didn't get to that part.
He does
Oh.
all that for nothing.
Oh, that's so stupid. Good Lord. Oh, that's terrible. Oh man, I see some people also mentioning something that again could be construed as some spoilers because it's about something not in it, about a certain actor not being in it. So I don't know or not. So I guess if you're not wanting to know if a certain actor or actress is or isn't in the movie, I guess close your ears for a second, right? So slight spoiler here, I guess. But I am sad that Rick Moranis was not brought in. But again, he has retired from acting for a very good reason, for a very good purpose. And basically, except for that one commercial that he's done with Mint Mobile, where he's on screen for like 5 seconds,
Yeah.
he's stuck to that, other than like some of the voice acting roles he's done. So I give him kudos for that. But anyway, Michelle, thank you very much for being my guest tonight and for talking about this movie with me because, yeah, I came out of the film and I was like, I just want to talk about this. So like, I did a quick review, woke up the next day and I was just excited. I'm like, can't wait to do this review. And one of the things I mentioned was that, I don't know if you had this experience in your theater or not. Did you have people staying out after the movie, like either in the theater, outside the theater, or in the parking lot talking about the movie?
We went to like such an early screening that I didn't notice that because everyone waited until both end credits rolled and then so I wasn't a good setting to judge that.
Okay. Yeah, because seeing it opening night, it just so much talk about nostalgia. Just for me, it was a Thursday night premiere, and even though the numbers were not nearly as much as what we've seen in the past, I saw there were people literally hanging right outside of the IMAX screen just talking about the movie. People in the parking lot, something that I used to do all the time when I went to go see films when I was younger. Like I would just hang out with my friends talking about the movie nonstop in the parking lot. So seeing that again was like, that's the kind of magic that this movie has. Is that it's not the best film in the world. It's not going to blow you away because it's the most original story that's ever been told. But it's as you said, you've had that word. It's magic. Right? There's a magic to it that I think is going to capture the minds and hearts of a lot of people based on what I saw from Tina. Because I think that she said that even like she and her brother were tearing up at the same moment we were talking about. And I think that is the emotion it's going to have. That's what's going to lead to people saying, go see this movie, which by the way, go see this movie if you've not picked that up from our conversation. Because if for anything else, so that this movie can beat 2016 Ghostbusters in its opening weekend.
Well, I plan on at some point going to see it again. Yes. Like I want to see it again in theaters. Like I enjoyed it that much.
I'm thinking of buying a ticket because I have AMC A-list. So I'm thinking of like ordering a ticket, even though I know I won't be able to go, just to try and give it money, like just to be like, hey, take the ticket that I technically have. The only issue is that I'm pretty sure it doesn't count if you don't pick up the ticket. So that's like the one like possible wrinkle in it, but I'm even thinking of like doing something like that where it's like, no, I want this film to do well enough just for it to be 2016's nonsense. But anyway, before we go, Michelle, want to give a plug to your channel? Anything else that you want to shout out or other people you want to shout out?
Well, thanks for having me. We did a short review right out of the theater too, so it was nice to have a longer format discussion where I've had time to like actually think and digest the movie some more. So thank you very much for having me on.
Yes, and again, you can check her out over at Force of Light Entertainment, where again she and Natalie are always rocking it over there with movie reviews. They did a review of a newer film, Red Notice, which I have not seen yet. And I think I love the way that you described it as being, it's a good Netflix movie.
Yeah. Yeah.
It's like, if I saw it in a theater, I wouldn't like it as much. No. But because it's because it's on Netflix, even though it may have not have been made for Netflix, because it was on Netflix, it was entertaining enough. But
if you got 2 hours, it's fine.
You want to throw 2 hours away with mindless stuff? Hey, go right ahead. You'll enjoy parts of it.
Yes, that's kind of what that is.
But anyway, as I said, you can indeed, again, check her out, Force of Light Entertainment. So I see that Stephanie B, one of my mods, is dropping that in. The Valkyrie dropping those mods, dropping those links in the description of the video. Also, you can find a link to their channel as well. So make sure that you subscribe over to that channel. And again, Michelle, thank you so much for joining today. I had a lot of fun with our discussion.
I did too. Yeah, great movie and great discussion.
Absolutely. So that is going to be a wrap for tonight's episode. So a little different than usual, right? And this is something that I'm hoping to do more so of in the future of being able to have these discussions and to bring people on and to talk about movies and to talk again. It's fun to talk about movies again and to have a movie that is worth talking about again. Yeah. You know, and of course, Andrew Hoyle, who's one of my followers from the UK, just randomly comes in. Is it safe to unmute yet? It's like, well, I dropped the spoilers button and you came in right at the very end. So anyway, thank you all very much for being here tonight. Shout out, of course, to Stephanie B, who's been here all night, rocking it as a mod, to Laura, who was modding a lot tonight as well, and to Tina, who came in right after her movie to come in as well. So thank you so very much. And also to every single person watching, especially the members on the channel. Thank you very much. If I was not able to get to your comment or question, I do apologize. But again, I wanted to make sure that the focus was on our conversation. Hopefully you enjoyed the conversation. And again, make sure you subscribe to Force of Light Entertainment. I have no idea if Michelle and I are going to be able to talk once I click this video to play, because it mutes the microphone for y'all. I'm assuming it's going to, I don't know what's going to happen. So we'll see. We might just have to talk in the text chat that we have back here. But anyway, again, Michelle, thank you for joining me. And for everyone else, thank you very much for being here. Smash the like button, light up that fire button. Again, Aussie fam, the reason why I haven't been over there tonight is because it was not working earlier and then it randomly started to work. So again, I apologize for not taking any comments over there. But anyway, thank y'all, Mr. Dragonbone, IRC Life, Vincent Womack. I'll just make sure to shout your names out at the very least for being over there. Thank y'all for supporting over on Odyssey. Anyway, that's going to be it for me tonight. Thank you again, everybody, for being here. Have a wonderful rest of your evening. And as always, God bless. And now for a huge shout out to all of my November Patreon, Subscribestar, and Locals members. Starting first off with Patreon, Andrew Hoyle, animation commentator, Brandon, Brian P., Christopher Bowman, Dolores Ed, Dion, Father Christopher Miller, hail to you, Father, Father Damian Cook, Garrett Searles, Harold Francis, Inflamed Wood, Jacob the Juice, JC, Jeffrey Toon, Joe Horn, Jonathan Carney, Gomer Kyle 79, Laura the Modern Major General Story, Mike Jackson, Mad Mitch Dunaway, Mondo Spieler, Mr. Peabody, On to June, Orange at Reviews, Out of Step with Reality, Priscilla Hall, Rosetta Ullen, Stan Andrian, Teresa Martin, Theodore Bendon, Tina Bojan, and Tina B, the Empress of the Universe. And a shout out to my Subscribestar members, UAB, Mad Dog, Storm Tracker, The R, Fast Reaction, Nosferatu Gatsu, Stan 4, John B, Perpetual Punster, Mr. Roy, Glinzer, J, Alex McCarthy Jr., Dean Heiss / the new number 2, and J Rod, the Beer Guru, and of course, ZK Man. Thank you very much for supporting me over there. And to my 3 supporters over on locals.com, Kara Tharp, Bifford a Hobbit, and Robert Barnes. You guys are all amazing and beautiful people. And if you want your name shouted out at the end of every live stream and every video I do on the channel, check out that top link in the description below to find out how to sign up to the various levels that exist, including the most basic level where you get a shout out, the secondary level, the Army of Asgard, where you get that, plus access to a giveaways exclusive server where I give away things like 4Ks and Blu-rays and digital codes. all kinds of stuff, a lot of fun. You then also have the Keeper of the Bifrost level where you get all that stuff plus access to an exclusive podcast that I do with John the Flick Pick Flickinger. You get to ask us questions, and you get also access to that and the entire library of podcast episodes that we have done. And then there is, of course, the Chosen of Valhalla level where not only do you get all of that, but also in your first month, you get a t-shirt of your choice and sent to you anywhere in the world. Of course, just let me know your size and the color option that you want. It'll be sent to you that first month. And also you get to be featured on the once a month Chosen of Valhalla live stream where we have a ton of fun talking about movies and projects and all kinds of stuff. Pretty much anything that the Chosen wants to talk about is on the table. So if any of that sounds interesting to you, check out that top link. You're all amazing and beautiful people. Hope you all have a wonderful rest of your day. And as always, God bless.